The elders said it very well when they said, our people live through kinkakun, through love. The big thing about our way was to make sure everyone was doing well, doing okay, had food, had clothing. So everyone took care of each other to survive, to make it year after year, because people needed each other.
Because the world is on fire, there are tremendous things underway. Even the whole Arctic ecosystems and peoples have to face now a completely new environment and adjust to those and adapt, as the saying goes. But the ultimate answer that we are trying to provide has to do with how are we rising up to that challenge.
ELOKA stands for the Exchange for Local Observations and Knowledge of the Arctic. And we have partners across the Arctic and subarctic, so it's not just in the far north. So we work across Alaska, for example. We work in the boreal regions of Europe and northern Russia. We have partners in Greenland, and we have partners in Canada. And so yes, it's a network, and the network is really an important part of ELOKA.
In the last 5 years, it has been very challenging for our region.
You know, you just don't have a good data record for this area, and the conditions are changing really quickly, and the people who see it first are the people who are out on the land, and they know what it used to be like, right? So they are the best positioned people to be identifying these kinds of things, and they're doing it in ways that are more interesting and more in-depth than you would get from just regular data sets.
The storms, we see a lot more ingulik, we call them, rolling waves. We've seen the shift of early migration of different species, namely bowhead whales, beluga whales, walruses. The arrivals have been 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and we also record breakup of ice and when the ice comes in, when the ice goes out. Those kind of things are important. The formation of ice, the amount of snowfall, and erosion. I think erosion has been very concerning to all of us in around the circumpolar Arctic.
Nora always says that we're a service provider, and I think that's a pretty good way to describe what we do. Our expertise is on like the data management side and the software side, so that's where we can offer help and support. But because all of the projects that we work with are all over the place and are doing very different things, the data management support and the software tools that we're creating look very different.
The role that I have in the Sustainable and the Net Sea Futures project is to work basically as a coordinator for different community-engaged coastal monitoring projects. And we also started up a network of elders who are just, highly respected individuals in their communities. They're really knowledgeable, and they're out on the land all the time. And so they make observations. So they collect observational data about the sea ice conditions. Before we started, it was just really intimidating. I was looking for information about how to do that well, and reached out to Noor, and she was very generous with her time, talking to me, giving me advice, and basically they've just continued to stay in touch with us and support our project by helping us think through things like conversations about Indigenous data sovereignty and how to make a searchable database out of observational data and all of those kinds of things. So they've been like a really good support system for us as we get started.
The project that I'm working with is Tahltan Atlas, and we're partnered with ELOKA to do that work. What we're doing is we're documenting on the atlas information like the place names, Tahltan place names of villages, trading places, the rivers, the creeks, the water bodies, and the land features, the mountains, the hills, those types of things.
The sad thing is, we're experiencing all the changes. We have a front row seat up north.
The entire northern Seward Peninsula, and from Espenberg over to Sealing Point or Cape Kootenstern, that's the Kotzebue Sound. The rest of it is called the Chukchi, of course. That's the danger of the Kotzebue Sound, is that when you get a wind that's coming straight in, it pushes all the water in, and then right past this bottleneck right here, and everything in this place gets saturated with water. The currents come in, the tides come in, the waves come in with the tide, and it gets really, really nasty.
But this is not in our area, it's happening worldwide, so you take that local perspective and you multiply it as to what's happening worldwide. And everything that's happening worldwide is the same as what we're experiencing there.
ELOKA brings those of us that have the same work together, and I think that's important. And I'd like to see ELOKA continue that. It makes us feel that we're not alone.
There was a real need for support for data management at the community level, at the level of smaller projects that were focusing on documenting Indigenous knowledge, place names, observations of environmental change.
I would like to see us and people younger than me and people older than me become more active in talking to our children and passing on our cultural knowledge. But it's becoming harder and harder.
I think of Anvik as kind of a dying community. We're losing a lot of people. A lot of people seems to be moving, whether it be for education or employment. And what I want to see in our community, whether people choose to live in Anvik or elsewhere, growing up, is I want them to be proud Daguetan Athabascan, proud to say where they're from. And that's really what it's all about.
So, we've often talked in these meetings about what the youth are supposed to, or what we hope the youth will receive, not just from the ELOKA network, but the knowledge of the elders, because that's really what the kind of communication is this intergenerational exchange that oftentimes was, essential to Indigenous life.
Sharing keeps everybody going. And when you share things, you get closer together.
I like to think of us more of as, instead of a network, we're getting to know each other a little better. So we're almost like becoming this family of people, all fighting for the same cause, which is the next generation of kids, so they could have and experience some of the things that maybe we experience. So preserving that knowledge and passing it on, that's really what I think life is all about.
The place names that we've inputted at the very beginning are the place names I learned from my grandmother. Traveled and go to fish camp and things like that, and she would talk about these names, and it's repetition, right? It's not like I didn't learn the place names after one tribe, but we're always going out, right? Because I lived with her for like 20 years or whatever. And so it's always repetition. And so I started to learn these names and the stories and things like that. What I want to do is populate most of that information with students who are going out and interviewing their elders.
If youth are looking for where power is and where they can have power in their life, actually sitting at the foot of these elders and listening to them and going out with them and experiencing that practice, knowing that you can do this, knowing that you can go out and take care of yourself, that you can adapt, is one of the most powerful abilities a human can have.
Kunkakun, through love. That's what made everything work for them. Cooperation, working together, working hard, making sure everyone had what they need. And to a lot of our cultural values work toward living quietly, in peace with each other, and helping each other out. Very beautiful culture.
You